given on which the relation has to be formed, right? And we have tried to form a lot of relations as well. Sometimes we can form the relation in roster form, and sometimes we will not be able to form the relation in roster form, right? Like those examples in which the relation was defined as L1 is parallel to L2, the set when we were defining the relation on a set of lines, and the relation consists all those lines which are parallel or which are perpendicular. So these type of things cannot be shown by writing, and you have to understand what the logic has been going behind the question. And in some cases we can form the relation. We know how to form a relation, right? Now we have also studied about functions in class 11. So do you guys know the basic difference between relation and function? Can someone explain me? What is the difference between relation and a function? I'm open to wrong answers. No worries. You can tell me whatever if you have something in your mind. Okay. So to understand the difference between relation and a function, first of all, relation and function both have the same function. I mean, the characteristics are same. Just a small difference. We will discuss about that. But what does these things do? What does a relation do and what does a function do? They basically connect two sets. Okay, they connect two sets in the simple language. So let's say I have one set like this. भाई वो कहाँ से आएगा इसमें? अच्छा जी नहीं, चलो कोई नहीं. Okay, yeah. So let's say I have one set A and another set B, and I'm representing them in the Venn diagram form. Everybody know, right? What is a Venn diagram? This kind of a shape is known as Venn diagram. Venn diagram is basically a diagrammatic representation of a set. So let's say this is set A, this is set B. Set A consists 1, 2, 3, and set B consists 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now I can connect them with any rule, right? And let's say I have defined some rule. According to that, this is the case we have arrived. So this is domain. A set is domain or input, and B set is output. So we are basically connecting input and output through some rule. I mean, we can form a relation. Right now we are not focusing on the rule, some rule. And according to that rule, the ordered pair we got is 1, 4. So I have connected 1 with 4. This kind of thing is known as arrow diagram, right? So I'm showing you a visual representation of what we have done previously. So this 1 is connected to 4, and let's say this 2 is connected to 6. Now if two sets are connected, they are forming a relation. So right now the answer of this relation is 1, 4 and 2, 6. Right, this is our relation, 1, 4 and 2, 6. Now another relation can be formed on these two sets with some other rule, and then there will be a diagrammatic representation of that as well. Every relation or every function can be represented diagrammatically like this. If we know their sets are finite, I mean the sets on which you are defining those relations are finite, then you can easily show via diagram as well. Okay. Now understand the difference between relation and function. So when I connect these two sets, right, they form a relation always. They will always form a relation. But are they forming a function? I mean, two sets can be connected through two rules, either through the rules of relation or through the rules of function. Now, what I'm saying is, whenever you connect two sets, there has to be a relation between them. But it is not necessary that they are connected by the rules of function also. So whenever we connect two sets, a relation has already been formed. If you're connecting two sets, then a relation has been formed. Now you have to check whether that relation can be called as function or not. So function has some special or specific criteria. Function basically has two rules. It will focus on these two rules. If your conditions, or if these two sets, input and output set, are following these two conditions, then your relation is said to be function. Otherwise, it is just a relation, right? So whenever we connect two sets, there is a relation between them. Now we will check whether that relation can be called function or not. How will we check? We have two conditions. First condition is all the elements of input. Now here input is 1, 2, 3. Set A is our input, right? First set is input, second set is output. Or first set is domain, second set is range. You can see it like that. So first condition is all the elements of the set domain, all the elements of the set domain must have a single output. Or must have an output. So all of the elements which are in your domain or which are given in the input must have an output. Must have an output. And the second condition is each element of domain should have only one output. So there are two rules. First, there should be no element in the set domain which does not have any output. Every element in the domain must have an output, and it should have only one output. So what are we saying? Right now, whatever is written, the example we have taken, in that example, the set A consists three elements, 1, 2, and 3. One has in output as 4, 2 also has output as 6, but 3 does not have any output. So this relation does not satisfy the conditions of a function. Right now, this relation does not satisfy the conditions of functions because there is one element in the input set which has no output. This condition should not arise in case of a function. So we can call this as a relation, but not as a function. Right? Now consider this situation. Let's say the relation was this: 1, 4, 2, 5, 3, 6. Now see, all of the three elements of the set input has output. So the first condition is satisfied here. Now let's come to the second condition. Second condition says each element of the input must have a single output. So one should have only one output. What? It can be anything, but should have only one. One should not have two outputs. Right now, one only has one output, 4, 2 has 6, 3 has 5. So right now, this is a function. We can say that this is a function from A to B. Function from A to B. Because it is satisfying both the conditions. First condition is every input has output, and every input has only one output, not more than one output. Now let's check. I'm giving you some cases. Try to check whether you're able to find out whether the given relation is a function or not. Okay, so this is A, this is B, this has 1, 2, 3, and this has A, B, C. So this has 1. Now this has B, and 3 does not have any output. So is it a function or a relation? Everything is a relation, right? But you have to check whether that relation can be called as function or not. This is surely a relation. But for function, it needs to satisfy these two conditions. You can give me your answers in chat box. Then I'll also try to explain why we had these two rules. But first you understand Anji, first, is it a function or just a relation? No, right, Faiza. Why? अरे you can answer me on मतलब just mic on कर लो और मेरे को फटाफट से बता दो क्या क्या क्यों नहीं है मैं ये जानना चाहता हूँ. I'm more interested in why it is not happening. Yeah, right. So in the first part, right, Austin, correct. So in the first part, we can see that there is an element 3 in the set input which does not have any output. So this is a relation. And why relation? Because of 3. Because 3 has no output, right? Now let's come to second. Is it a relation or function? Humamuddin, will you answer this? Is it a relation or function? Now think about it, Faiza. Okay, which element has 2 outputs? Tell me this. In the second case, we are trying to find out. Yeah, right. So see, the second one, we have, so let's check first condition first. First condition says कि सारे input के elements का output होना चाहिए, right? Austin, your answers are correct and I guess you have got it. So I'm just trying to make them understand in Hindi. So पहला condition ये होगा हमेशा कि input के सारे elements का output होना चाहिए, right? Input के अंदर 3 elements हैं 1 2 3 तीनों arrows से connected है, right? There are 3 arrows coming out of A and which are coming out from different elements. So we have covered all the elements basically, right? तो सबसे पहली चीज इनपुट के हर इनपुट का आउटपुट होना चाहिए. मेरे पास 3 इनपुट थे 1 2 3, तो तीनों का आउटपुट है. अब दूसरी चीज मैं चेक करूंगा कि क्या कोई ऐसा इनपुट है, इज देयर एन इनपुट which has 2 outputs. So one has one single output A, 2 has the output B and 3 also has the output B. तो यार हम लोगों ने ये नहीं बोला था कि 2 इनपुट का एक आउटपुट नहीं हो सकता. That is possible. What is happening here? There are 2 inputs 2 and 3 which points to same output or which gives us same output B. But that wasn't the condition of function. Function says, see here, second condition, each element of domain should have only one output. So 1 has one output A, 2 also has one output. What is that? B. 3 also has one output B. So our condition is satisfied. This is a function, definitely a function. Function ने ये नहीं बोला था कि आपके 2 इनपुट के एक आउटपुट नहीं हो सकता. It only said that one input cannot have 2 outputs, but 2 inputs can surely have one output. Even 2 or more inputs can have same output, right? Correct, Tarif. Why?
So because 3 has 2 outputs here and then the second one is mentioned that domain should only have one output.
Correct. Good. So this is a relation. Why? Because there is a single input which has 2 outputs now. 3 is connected to C as well as 3 is connected to D. Right? So the basic difference between relation and function is that if you are connecting two sets through any condition, then that is a relation. But if your relation satisfies these two conditions, that every element of input must have only one output. This is a combined term, combined sentence for both the conditions, that each element of domain should have, must have output and only one output. So if your relation is satisfying this condition or these two conditions, कि इनपुट का हर इनपुट का आउटपुट होना चाहिए और हर इनपुट का एक ही आउटपुट होना चाहिए. If your relation is satisfying these two conditions, in that case you can say that this relation is a function, right? So the basic difference between them are these two conditions, and we can also note this line that every function is a relation. मतलब रिलेशन तो बन ही गया जैसे ही आपने कनेक्ट किया दो सेट को. अब उस रिलेशन को फंक्शन बोल सकते हैं कि नहीं, ये चेक करना है. तो जो भी फंक्शन होगा वो रिलेशन तो है ही. एवरी फंक्शन इज अ रिलेशन, बट every relation is not a function. Right? So this is the basic of functions. Like, what are functions? Functions are special kind of relations only. You can understand it like that. Functions are special kind of relations which follows these two conditions. Now, the question is, the difficult part is not to understand what is happening in the chapter. The difficult part is concepts. No, we have to understand why did we apply these two conditions. What is the point, or what did we get? Just give me a minute. Yeah. So why did we apply these two conditions? So first of all, for that, to understand that, you have to understand that the main role of function is not to draw these diagrams. This is just for your understanding. We will not use it much. But for your understanding part, I tried to show you by diagram first, because we have covered this in class 11. And then in class 12, we'll be covering some other things, which is actually the role of functions. So what does functions do in our life? Understand it, that function is a very important part. Okay. For example, I would like to show you a practical example, like fridge, refrigerator, washing machine, then TV, laptops. Everybody is using some function. Everybody has some function. Okay. So let's talk about washing machine, right? So washing machine, what does it do? We give it input. What are the inputs? Clothes, dirty clothes. And what is the output? Clean clothes, right? That is a function. Everything is a function if you think it correctly. And a lot of things happening on your laptop is only possible because we are using a lot of functions to design that. Right now we are talking on Zoom. Zoom has been coded by someone who used a lot of functions to code this. Okay. अभी थोड़ा ज़्यादा philosophical बातें हो गई हैं. Now we are going towards the philosophical thing, but maths is a very abstract subject, and a lot of functioning in our lives, a lot of things in our lives are dependent on maths. Believe me. I mean, when I say this, I am not exaggerating something, but a lot of this all of this bubble, AI bubble and machine learning is based on maths. Whatever is happening today, the apps, as soon as you are increasing in tech, as soon as you are growing in tech, you are using more and more and more maths. So function has a very important role in our lives. Every business is going through some function. There is some functioning behind that. Now, how do we use functions? How do we use these mathematical functions in our real life? So for that, I would like to show you just a very practical example. So let's say there is some company, okay, and which has some advertisements. Every company do some or other advertisement, right? And why do they show us ads? To generate revenue. Generate revenue, or you can say sales. They want to sell something, right? They want to sell something. Now, if they want to sell something to us, they will show the targeted ads, right? Now we have to understand how the spend on advertisement is affecting our sales. Like there are three mediums of advertisement, for example, and these three mediums are: first is digital media, then second is hoardings or posters. So we have three mode of advertisements. First is digital media, that we have a Instagram page and everything and web page. So we are doing digital marketing or digital ads, or then we have posters, and then third is hoardings, let's say. Now these three will, I mean, we have to invest a lot in all of them, right? Now we want to understand what is the factor that is deciding the sales the most, or on which the, I mean, the sales are on which factor sales depends on the most. We want to know this, right? So how is digital media affecting our sales? How is posters affecting our sales? And how are hoardings affecting our sales? So we have to create a function to understand this. Like how sales is depending on all these three factors. That is the role of a function. What does function do? Function connects two variables with each other. Again, function connects two variables with each other. Now, what are the variables here? Advertisement is a variable here and sales is a variable here. We are trying to connect sales and advertisement with each other by some mathematical formulation, which we will get through numbers, or how are we getting that? That is a totally different area. I mean, we will learn that in business and other things, that how can we create this, or how does this dependency is going on between them. But we have to form a mathematical relation to understand the effects of advertisement on sales. And believe me, this is true. I mean, this is an industrial problem. People are doing this. Where to invest most to get the maximum sales, or to generate the maximum revenue, right? So that is the job of a function. The job of a function is to connect two variables. It can obviously connect two sets, but the rather more important part is to connect two variables. So basically, why are we using a function? To connect two variables, or to connect two unknown things. We want to know the effect of one thing on another. And in fact, we can connect more variables as well, not just the two variables. We can connect 10 variables, whatever number of variables are there, we can connect all of them. कैसे करेंगे connect? How do we find that mathematical equation? That is a different point of view right now. That is not, we are not talking about that. For that, we will have to understand more things also. But we will surely have a mathematical equation between all these variables. So that is the role of a function, or why are we learning function? Because through function, we can connect two or more variables. So the more important function, or the more important characteristic of a function, is to connect two variables or more variables. Right now, we will be talking about two variables only, because your syllabus consists all the equations in two variables only. But it can also connect more variables. Then as you go in the higher classes, there will be more variables involved, right? Because it is not humanly possible that we have always only two unknown things. There may be more unknown things when it comes to business, right? So the job of a function is to connect two or more variables. Now let's come to our part. ये तो था थोड़ा आपकी practical understanding के लिए. This was all about your understanding of that why are we using this, or why are we even learning this? Because it is too useful, man. Okay. So talking about function now. Function basically connects two variables, or it connects two sets. You can write it like this. It connects two sets or variables. But as I said, this is the most important part. We will not be connecting two sets here. We will always be connecting the variables only, right? And how does it do so? With two conditions. Each, I'm adding both of the conditions in the single statement. So each element of domain must have an output I should write it like this. Each element of domain must have one and only one output. So each element of input, your domain, must have an output, and it should be only one output. Okay. So it connects two sets. Now let's come to this condition. Why are we doing this? So as I said that there will be a mathematical equation involved. So generally, I am giving you the basics first. Generally, what we'll be doing in function, we'll be having two variables, y and x. They will be connected through some mathematical equation. For example, this is a function y is equals to x square. What does it do? X is always taken as input and y is always taken as output. Or you can say that x is always domain, the values of input, and y is always the range, the value of outputs, right? This is the basic notation. So you will give some x, you will get some y. So for example, this function, what this function is doing, if you give it some input, it will square that input. This is the job of this function, y is equals to x square, right? So if I give it 1, it will give me 1. If I give it 2, it will give me 4. You give it 10, it gives you 100 back, right? So that is the job of a function. Now, the first condition was, now let's come to the conditions. Why did we apply these conditions? First condition is each element of input must have an output. Now, as we have talked about, that the main job of function is to connect two variables, right? Now you are connecting two variables. So basically you are forming an equation. Now, now while you are forming this equation, have you seen an equation in which you give some value and you did not get the answer? Every equation has an answer, right? मैं यहाँ पे कुछ भी रखूंगा x की वैल्यू, कुछ ना कुछ आंसर आना चाहिए, तभी तो इक्वेशन का कोई पॉइंट है. Otherwise there is no point of forming an equation if you can't get an output. So because we are using function as the mathematical equations, so every mathematical equation has an answer. That is why the first point, that every input must have an output. There is no equation in which you will put an input. I mean, either you can't put that input. If you can put that input, then that input must have an output. Because we haven't seen any equation, any mathematical equation in which you give the output input and you did not get any output. No, this is not possible. For a mathematical equation, this is not possible. Right. Now, the second thing is that every input must have a single output, right? Sorry guys. So yeah, let's we have discussed the first point that every input must have an output. Now let's coming to the second point that every input must have a single output, right? So now come to this equation y is equals to x square. If you give the value of x as 2, right? The value of y is what? 4. There will be no equation in which you give an input and you get 2 outputs. Or let's say if you are getting 2 outputs, what happens then? If you're getting 2 outputs, then I don't think we'll be able to single out one output. No. If we put x2 and we get 2 answers for y, what is the answer then? What will you take? So because of this confusion, this condition should not arise that an input is having 2 outputs. Because if that happens, what is the output then? What is the answer of the equation? तो सिंपल यही है कि अगर हम x को 2 या 3 रखते हैं कुछ भी, मान लो let's say x, you put x is equals to 2 and you get 2 answers, y is equals to 4 and y is equals to 6, then what is the answer? पहली बात तो ऐसा केस भी नहीं देखा होगा हमने, देखो कभी नहीं देखा हमने इस तरीके की चीजें कि एक इनपुट दे रहे हैं एंड वी आर गेटिंग 2 आउटपुट्स. But if there is a case like that, then what is the answer? We won't be able to figure out the answer for that. No. So that is why these two conditions, because they don't help us in mathematical equations, in solving mathematical equations. So we have formed these two rules that every input must have an output. And the second thing is every input must have only one output. Right? Now you guys are free to ask me questions, please, if you have any problem regarding this, or if you did not understand any part. After that, we'll be starting with the next theory. Okay, cool. So it's done, right? We do understand the function, role of function now. What does function do? It connects two sets that we have learned in class 11th. But right now, in class 12th, we can say that the main job of function is to connect two variables, right? And how does it connect two variables? Through two rules. One is that every element of input must have an output, and second is every element of input must have only one output, right? Now we have formed these functions. We know the basic types of functions. If not, then I would suggest I would suggest everyone to go through the basic NCERT only from class 11th. Just read the first chapter function. Okay, read it. I'm not saying you to solve it. Just read it. It'll hardly take half an hour, and you can read it so you can be better prepared for the class. Right? Now, what we'll be talking about this year. So we'll be talking about the types of functions. Okay, my bad. Just a minute. Types of function. Now, functions can be divided broadly into two categories. First, based on the domain. And second, based on range. Now, how did we define them? So based on domain, we have two type of function. First is 1-1 functions. One functions. They're also known as injectives. There's another name for these kind of functions, injective functions. And the second type of function is many-one functions. Right? And if we talk about based on range, then we have two types of function. First is onto function. And second is into function. onto and into. Onto functions are also known as surjective. But before I explain them in detail, I would first show you this through some examples. So let's take, before discussing the further part, let's take some examples. And before starting with examples, also understand one more thing, that function, we have broadly classified this into two categories, right? Many one, based on domain and based on range. So based on domain, your function has to be one kind, like either it will be one or it will be many one. The function will have one type out of domain and will have one type based on range. So either there are four pairs now, which in which your function can be categorized into. One is your function can be one and onto. Then your function can be one and into. And similarly, your function can be many one onto and many one into. Right? So your function will have certainly a type based on domain, one type based on domain, and one type based on range. So you will have in total four combinations which can be formed or in which your function can be categorized into. Right? Either it can be one onto, either it can be one into, or it can be many one into and many one onto. Okay. Now try to understand it with some examples. You will be able to get it. Then we will discuss how to find out whether the function is many one into or onto through maths. Through mathematical modeling. Okay, so let's have these two sets. We consider these two sets A and B, and we have in A we have 1, 2, 3, and in B we have 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, sorry, 4, 5, 6. For now, let's say it's only 4, 5, 6. Now, what does 1 say? 1 function means you can interpret it like this: one input, one output. I'm telling you, one input, one output. And many one says many inputs, one output. It's very simple to understand. Okay. First of all, tell me whether it is a function or not. Can we call this as a function? Yes, correct. So this is a function right now because every element of input has an output and every element of input has only one output, right? Now, coming to the second part, what kind of function is this? So based on domain, we can categorize the function into two parts, one and many one. One says one input, one output, means one input having one output. While the second one, many one says many inputs, one output. So for example, in this case, one has only one output 4, 2 has only one output 5, 3 has only one output 6. Now let's say in spite of this, our function is like this. So now 2 and 3 both has the same output 5. It can be considered like this: many inputs, basically two inputs and one output. So when your one output, or rather you can say that when two or more inputs have the same output, then the function is many one. When two or more inputs has the same output, then the function is many one. It's very simple if you just decode these words. One input, one output. Many inputs, one output. If more than two or more than two inputs have the same output, in that case, we can define that function as many one. And if every output is defined by a single input only, then we can say that this function is one function. So right now, this function, what I have written is many one. Why? Because 2 and 3 both have same output. This is certainly a function. because every input has one output and every input has output. So this is a function, but in the function also, this category can be defined as many one. While if I write it like this, if I just change this arrow and convert it into 3 to 6, right? Now this is 1, 1. Because one input, one output. There is not a single output which is connected by two inputs. Although if it would have been connected by two inputs, it is still a function, but the type of function will change. In that case, we will call that function as many one function. Anji, everybody got this? Just please, just raise your hand. I will not even ask kya doubt hai. If you didn't understand anything, I'll explain the topic again, but just raise your hand. So अभी हम क्लासिफाई कर सकते हैं कौन सा मैनी वन और कौन सा वन वन होगा अगर मैं दिखाऊं तो. Austin, you don't worry about this, whatever I have asked them. कर सकते हैं सभी लोग? Okay, cool. So right now, so Austin, I was asking them whether they can classify the function into one one or many one or not. So can you guys tell me what kind of a function is this, which I have written? One one or many one? I want answers from everyone. Oh, good, good, Tharif and Pfizer. Correct, Shahid. Correct. अच्छा जी, चलो फिर ये बता दो जरा. Oh, sorry. What kind of function is this? One one or many one? Good, Shahid. Austin and Humamuddin both are wrong. Guys, this is not a function right now. How can we call this as a function if there is a single input which does not have any output? No, Humamuddin, अभी तो ये function ही नहीं है क्योंकि 3 का तो कोई output ही नहीं है. No. Did you get it?
No, sir.
देख, अगर एक भी इनपुट ऐसा है जिसका आउटपुट ही नहीं आ रहा, तब तो फंक्शन ही नहीं बोलेंगे ना. अभी तो ये फंक्शन ही नहीं है क्योंकि 3 एक ऐसा इनपुट है जिसका कोई आउटपुट नहीं है, तो अभी तो एक फंक्शन की कंडीशन फुलफिल नहीं कर रहा. As long as the given relation is not a function, how can we define the category or how can we define the type of that function? It's not a function right now. नहीं?
Yes, sir.
जब फंक्शन होगा तब we can define which type of category is this, right? So right now this is not a function. Okay, tell me this, is this a many one or one one function? Now this is a function, right? Because every input has output. Correct, Tharif. Good. Is this a is this a one one or many one function? This is a many one function, right? Because there are two inputs which are giving us the same output 5. 2 and 3 both have same output 5. So all the functions in which there are two or more than two inputs which can provide us the same output will be called as many one function, and you have to check through these examples whether the given function is one one or many one. So let's start with these two. Anji, is this a one one or many one function? Is this a function first? If yes, then just tell me the type. If not, then tell me no function. Correct, Faisal. Correct, Tharif. Acha, abhi, tell me now whether it is one one or many one. Correct. अभी भी many one. It's still many one, right? Okay, so this was a simpler concept. Okay, so this is 2536. Just correct. Correct. Right? 1 1. Okay. Now let's come to the second part. Onto and into functions. Right? So we do know about whether the function is 1 1 or many one. We can identify that. If there are 2 or more inputs which are giving us the same output, then we say that the given function is many one. Okay, okay. Just a simple thing. Is this function 1 1 or many one? How will you identify for this? Y is equals to x square. Try to give 2 values, try to find out whether 2 or more values are giving us the same output. See, in this case, if you put 2 or if you put minus 2, if you put 2 and if you put minus 2, both are giving us the same output, no? 4. 2 also has output 4 and minus 2 also has output 4. So we can definitely call this as many one function, right? Did you understand it? Y is equals to x square. 2 रखो या minus 2 रखो, दोनों ही केस में आंसर सेम है. Okay, chalo. Let's come to the next thing now. Let's come to onto and into. Now we are saying that these two depends on your range. So your range bane. Now let's understand it. Understand it like this first. So this is a function or this is a relation we are trying to form on two set. I'm talking about this second example right now. So this first set A is known as your domain. Or input or preimage. You can take any name, they all mean the same. Domain, input, and preimage. Right? Talking about B is your what? Codomain. Or output. Or image. So before going further, let's understand what is codomain. This is a new word. Codomain is the set of outputs. Set of all possible outputs. So when you are connecting two sets, all the possible outputs are known as, if you consider the set of all possible outputs, that is known as the codomain. For example, in this case, second example, your set of codomain is 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 4 elements in the codomain. Understand the difference between codomain and range. Codomain and range are not the same thing. Okay. So I'm trying to write everything here. What is domain? The set of inputs which is given or which is provided for the function. Then come to codomain. Codomain is your set of all possible outputs. So set A in above examples is the set of domain. For both examples, first and second, set A is your domain. Now codomain is set of all possible outputs. Codomain is the set of all possible outputs right? Now let's talk about range. So your range is the set of outputs you got we get after putting all the values from domain. Just give me a minute. Yeah, sorry. So range is basically the set of outputs you get after putting all the values from domain. Codomain is set of all possible outputs. For example, let's talk about any of the example. Let's take first. Okay. So your codomain is the set B, which is 4, 5, and 6. But your range is 4, 5. What is the difference? Range is the outputs we get. Codomain is set of all possible outputs. The outputs we could have get, right? So in this case, 4, 5, 6 could be the output, but the only outputs we get is 4 and 5 after putting the inputs. So that is the difference between range and codomain. First example, your range is 4, 5. And in second example, can you tell me the range in second example? 4, 5, 6, 7. 4, 5, 6, 7 in whole consist of our codomain. 4, 5, 6, 7 चारों possible outputs हो सकते हैं. तो चारों possible outputs हो सकते हैं, तो पूरा set is a codomain. 4, 5, 6, 7 वाला set is our codomain set. But the outputs we get after using inputs, that is range. तो outputs हमें क्या क्या मिला वो range है, और जो possible outputs हो सकते थे वो सब codomain है. So 4, 5, 6, 7 was the codomain, but the range is 4, 5, 6. Because these are the outputs we got. Sabhi log, did you understand, everyone? What is the difference between range and codomain? Codomain is all possible outputs. Range, not the all possible outputs. The outputs we get. Right? Now, coming to onto and into functions. So, onto function says when your range and your codomain are equal, and into function says that range is a proper subset, or we can write it like this. Range is a proper subset of codomain. If your range is a proper subset of codomain, then you will say the given function is into. If your range and codomain both are same, then you say that the function is onto. In simple words, if all the possible outputs are your outputs, the set of all possible output is not just the possible outputs, they are your actual outputs also. Then you say the given function is onto. And when the set of all possible outputs doesn't come in range, that is, your range is lesser than the codomain, or there is a single output which is not in the range, then you say the given function is into. For example, in first example and second example we have shown here, in the first one, set of all possible output was 4, 5, 6. But the outputs we got was only 4 and 5. So there is a single element 6 which is not there in the output set or range set, right? So this function is into. Why into? Because your range is lesser than codomain, or range is a proper subset of codomain, right? Now in the second case, the set of all possible outputs was 4, 5, 6, 7. And the outputs we got was 4, 5, and 6, right? So again, this is also an into function, right? Into many one, into 1, 1. Okay, let's take some more examples and try to identify whether the given function is into, onto, or 1, 1, many one. This is set A and this is set B. Set A is like this, 1, 2, 3, and see it set B is like this, A, B, C, D. This is 1A, this is 2B, and then this is 3C. Can you tell me whether the function is 1, 1 or many one, and similarly onto or into? So tell me the full category. 1, 1 onto, 1, 1 into, or many one into, many one onto. Correct, Pfizer. Tharif, correct. Good. But I want answers from everyone. Correct. Shahid, good. We can clearly see that the function is 1, 1. 1 has only one output, 2 has only one output, 3 has only one output. And there is not a single output which has two inputs associated. So this function is 1, 1. And talking about into and onto, there is one output which does not have any input. So your range is ABC, while the codomain is ABCD. Hence the function is into. Anji, which type of function is this? Which type of function is this? Fourth one. Correct, Faiza. Correct, Austin. This is right now, this is not a function. Correct, Harif. Because there is no output available for 2. Right? तो अभी तो ये function ही नहीं है क्योंकि 2 का कोई output नहीं है. Now, can you define the type now? Austin, correct है. You are correct. And Harif थोड़ा गलत है. Check it again. Faiza, good. Correct है. Correct है शाहिद. Okay. 2 inputs have same output. Many one. Now, कितने outputs थे? 1. All possible outputs? A. Output क्या आया? A. कोडोमेन भी यही है, रेंज भी यही है. On 2. सिर्फ into क्यों होगा? एक ही एलिमेंट था आउटपुट के पास और वही आउटपुट में आ भी गया. सो कोई भी ऐसा एलिमेंट है ही नहीं आउटपुट के सेट में जिसका एक्चुअली कोई इनपुट ना हो. There is not a single element in the set of output which does not have any input. All the possible outputs are outputs, actual outputs also. Yeah. So in this case, we can say that the given function is many one on 2. Okay, try to check this one. And you tell me the answers for this. Faiza, it's wrong. Correct, Shahid. This is not a function. 4 has 2 outputs, C and D. How can it be a function? No? Yeah. Okay. Check for this. What type of function is this? Correct. Not a function. Still not a function. But this is a function now. What type of function is this now? मोटा मोटा ऐसे देख लो कि एक ही एरो चलना चाहिए इधर से. हर एलिमेंट से एक ही एरो चलना चाहिए. अगर एक भी एलिमेंट इनपुट का ऐसा है जहां से 2 एरो जा रहे हैं ना, प्रॉब्लम है. ऑस्टिन करेक्ट है. करेक्ट. फैजा. नो शाहिद. या नाउ इट्स करेक्ट. सबसे पहले मेनी 111 के लिए इस तरीके से चेक करो, क्या कोई भी 2 एरो ऐसे हैं जो सेम जगह जाके पॉइंट कर रहे हैं? यस, 3 and 4 आर पॉइंटिंग टू सेम बी. मेनी 1 है because 3 and 4 both has the same output B. एक बार भी ऐसा हुआ कि 2 या 2 से ज्यादा इनपुट सेम आउटपुट दे रहे हैं तो मेनी 1 फंक्शन हो चुका है ना. Now come to input and output वाला part. Sorry, into onto वाला part. 5 एलिमेंट्स थे टोटल जो पॉसिबल आउटपुट्स बन सकते थे, है ना? बट कितने आउटपुट मिले? 3, ए बी ई. क्या रेंज? तो रेंज हुआ हमारा ए बी ई and the codomain here is A, B, C, D, E, right? Now you can clearly see the range has a smaller set than codomain. So hence the function is into, right? So did you get it? The basic, the basic knowledge of what is one function and what are many one functions, similarly onto and into functions. Please feel free to ask me your doubts because we will not be studying further. If we take any topic, then it will take time. So we won't be able to start a new topic now. I mean, we don't have to start a new topic, but we will have to solve questions on these and we will have to find out how, we will have to learn how to find out whether a given function is one or many one. First, we will find out whether the given function is one or many one. Then we will go to into and onto wala part. So in the next class, we will understand how a function, see, right now, I'm showing you these diagrams. So it is very easy to find out whether the function is one or many one, into or onto. But we are doing this for your understanding, for your better understanding of the concepts, that so that you can actually know what is many one and what is one function. So one is one input, one output, and many one is many inputs, one output. Similarly, onto functions are when range and codomain are equal. That is, all the possible outputs are actual outputs also. While into is all the possible outputs are not actual outputs. That is, your range has a smaller set of outputs than your codomain, right? We can identify them if the diagram form is given to us, but diagram form won't be given. We will have to solve these in what? Mathematical equations. Like we will give you functions. Y is equals to x square. This is a square function. Y is equals to root x. This is a square root function. Similarly, you have been studying inverse trigonometric functions. Similarly, trigonometric functions, y is equals to sine x is a trigonometric function. Here we want to identify the relationship between y and x through this rule, sine rule. Similarly, these are y is equals to 2 to the power x, exponential function. These are different kind of functions. There are different equations. This is trigonometric function. Then this is exponential function. These all we have covered in class 11. So please go through your NCERT once. You'll be able to have a better idea about what I'm saying right now. And then this is y is equals to log x to the base e. This is your logarithmic function. Then y is equals to x square, algebraic function. So we do have these types of category of functions, trigonometric, exponential, logarithmic, algebraic, based on certain patterns or based on certain rules. And these also can be classified into either they are one or many one. Similarly, either they will be into or onto, right? Just read about these things before coming to the next class. So you will have a better idea and we will also take less time to cover this. And then we will try to understand if a function is given to us, or rather if a mathematical equation is given to us, how do we find its domain? I don't think we will have to use the part of domain. We don't need to know how are we finding the domain, but we certainly need to check whether a given equation is one function is for one function or many one function. And similarly for onto function or into functions, right? So in the next class, we'll be discussing about how to find out whether a given function is one or many one. Okay. And everybody please stay for the assessment test. Your assessment test is going to start now. And before coming on to the next class, complete your 1.1 exercise, which we have covered in the last class also, I have told you. So if you have not covered that exercise, please cover that exercise. And then other than that, solve some of the questions from assignment also. I'll be assigning you some questions from this. What's the date today? 19th. Yeah. So equivalence class is not in our syllabus. Don't worry about this. Two, 4, 6, 7, 8, 12.